Welcome to Navigating Change, the education podcast from Tybal Inc. I'm Pete Wright, and I am here once again with Howard Tybal, and we are talking about graphic facilitation today as part of our ongoing discussion on the importance of storytelling to move the mission. But first, head over to tybalinc.com to learn more about our work in education. You can subscribe to the show for free. Just click the blue button, and we'll let you know each time a new episode is released. Our guest today is Karyn Knight Detering, an artist and visual communicator and founder of Ideas Take Shape, a graphic facilitation company dedicated to helping her clients find creative ways to communicate their ideas and concepts. She's done some fantastic work for Howard, and we are thrilled to be able to share her ideas with you all today.
Well, thank you, Pete. I'm very excited to be here with Karyn. Karyn, do you remember the first project we did together?
Yes.
What was it?
It was your book project.
My book project, exactly. So I was working on a book. Oh, the book I'm still working on, by the way, because you've asked me about that a few times. And it was really about how Karyn helped me frame the big picture of why am I writing this and all the threads that are in my head. I think that what you do is so fascinating because you fundamentally not only have the skill set as a facilitator, but you have the artistic ability to capture it visually in real time. And I can tell you, I find that to be so difficult. So my first question is, thinking about graphic facilitation, is how do you listen and draw so well at the same time?
And I don't think I have an answer for that. And I think it's one of the things that...
Did you have to develop that?
Yes. I mean, it is a listening skill. So you're listening to the words, the nuances, to the words within the words, and really starting to synthesize that into a few words and an image that will capture that particular theme or idea. And I don't know. I've always been drawing, so I don't really know where it came from.
Yeah, you can't explain that.
No.
It's just natural for you.
Yes, yeah.
So tell the group, the audience, about graphic facilitation. What is it that you do? Because I can tell you, it can transform how people engage with what they're involved in. So talk a little bit about it.
So I graphically record and facilitate with individuals all the way up to conferences with 300 plus people in them. And like I say, what I'm doing is taking people's thoughts, ideas, comments, and synthesizing them down. Now, depending on whether I'm working with an individual like you and your book, and we're trying to really articulate why you're writing the book and how to go about that, it's very different from working with 300 people who are listening to a presentation that's going on. And the idea and the reason behind that kind of graphic recording is really so that the audience can look at the information that's come out and rather than reams and reams of notes that nobody is ever going to go back to, they can look at this picture that's encapsulating the thoughts and the ideas of the presentation of the day.
It goes back to that concept that's been around forever, which is a picture is worth, I think it's 10,000 words.
Yes.
Not even 1,000 words.
Yes.
Seriously. How many times I've been in situations where I've been working with folks who have PowerPoint slides that have words in it that don't convey an idea. One is about it's fundamentally about telling a story, isn't it? Yes. And that's ultimately what you're doing when you're creating a visual. So give us an example of where you might use graphic facilitation for adults in a business environment. Again, most of the people that are listening to this work in higher education, whether it's administrative, academic side, and they're focused on trying to make strategic changes, and they're buried. So they need ways to pull themselves out from the weeds. And that's fundamentally what I think you do with graphic facilitation. So what's a good example of where you've used this?
Well, basically, graphic facilitation gives order where there's chaos. And, even if somebody is putting larger bullet points, frames around things, arrows, it's telling the brain where to go to with that information, and it allows people to be on the same page. Using graphic facilitation and recording helps groups that maybe don't always work together get on the same page, makes them see their connections, see where the differences are, and really have a concrete point of starting to begin those processes of strategic planning or any kind of planning or thoughts.
Well, I love that idea that it's about really getting people on the same page, because ultimately when they're looking at a picture being developed in real time, it's very different than a static set of slides, right? Just the fact that you're building something as it's happening. And it also becomes a document that they can come back to.
Yes.
So is there an example of, you mentioned to me at one point about some work you did at MIT.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do there?
They were having a symposium, and they had people from different industries coming in to talk about, it was a company, it was a project called the Age Lab. And they were looking at women over 45, women over 45 on the internet, and how they use the internet, and how those businesses could then use that information to really start selling to and giving their services to women. Because for the most part, with the companies they were working with, insurance companies, health companies, rest homes, the oldest female child in the family is the person who's going to be making the decisions for their family.
Interesting.
So they wanted a way to be able to use the information that's been gathered on how women in that age group actually use the internet.
So my understanding is that there's two ways, and I've worked with you, I think, both capacities. One where I remember I was facilitating an event, and you were there, and you were capturing, and that's called graphics recording, mm-hmm. right? And the graphic facilitation is you're actually the one asking the questions, engaging the group, while drawing at the same time.
So it's interesting. I want to go back to this MIT thing, because as you're talking to me and asking me questions, this symposium was probably about 4 years ago. As you're asking me the question, I'm closing my eyes and seeing the image that I drew. So it wasn't at the front of my brain to actually tell you what happened, but once I'm able to look at that yes. image, and because I drew it, it's going to come back to me more easily. Because it
went from your hand to the wall.
Yes. But anybody else in that meeting who's taken a picture, who's maybe put it on their screensaver and has looked at that, is also going to have that visual recognition of the meeting and those keys.
Why do you think people don't do this more often? Aside from having an artist like yourself who also has facilitation skills, why do you think this is done so infrequently? Because I can tell you from experience, it's rarely done.
I think because we all have a way of doing things, and it's the right way and the wrong way. And for the most part, people are going to go straight to the PowerPoint or look for a different way of presenting something without the PowerPoint.
Yes.
The thing with graphic facilitation is once people have had it in their meeting, they want it again.
Oh, yeah.
They see the value.
Exactly.
It shortens meeting times. It makes meetings more productive.
Yes.
It encourages more participation within the people at the meeting. And they see the value of it once you've had it there. But trying to explain to somebody beforehand what graphic facilitation does, there doesn't seem to be words that can
It's an experience. Mm-hmm. You have to experience it to appreciate the value.
Yeah.
So another thing you're getting into, which you've done for me, is animation.
Yes.
Which is so great. I have, and we'll put up there some examples for people to see. But I had this talk that a portion of it, I get up and I draw with my horrible handwriting a picture, and people get it, and I always dismiss, oh, they can't read it. But if I write long enough, they can finally figure out what these words mean. But you put it together in an animation that I can share now with folks, and it's turned into probably the singular thing that people have found to be the most valuable. And I can actually stand there, and I don't have to work it myself. So it seems to me this is an area that RSA, is that the name of it? That group,
they're the people who they
created that idea.
Yes. So everybody goes back to the RSA, but they're really whiteboard videos, and those things are crazy.
What do you mean?
I did that for you, and I still watch it to the end. People will watch those videos to the end. They want to see how the picture ends, how the story ends.
It's so cool.
So the human brain just wants this start and end piece to the story, and they will watch it, which is why so many companies now are using them, because when you would turn off a advert because it was boring, you'll want to see how the story ends as somebody's drawing.
It just keeps you engaged. Mm-hmm. Like, how is this thing evolving?
Yes.
And I can tell you that more people should go look at this video that Karyn did, or animation, of the 1/6 2/3 1/6. And I'm doing another one with her right now on the Valley of Despair. And I can tell you it embeds these ideas in people's brains that I can ask them 5 days later, what were the key concepts? And because they saw it visually, it's embedded in their brain.
Yes.
And that's a fundamental thing that I think people would benefit from doing more of, or even used in your services. So what about if you wanted to learn it yourself? I mean, have you ever taught others how to do this?
Yes.
You could probably do a whole class on this, right?
And I do. My background is in training and teaching. I work with middle school and high schoolers, and I work with adults who want to either take visual notes or do graphic facilitation within teams. Everybody thinks that you have to draw. The key is the listening.
That's interesting.
And we all know how to draw, but we come along and criticize ourselves. And in schools, we're allowed to say we don't do math, but then we still have to do math.
Right.
We say we can't draw, and everybody just lets you off. And the thing is that everything's a learn. Everything's a learned skill. So,
well, we're so judgmental of our drawing.
Yeah, and some people are going to be better, some people are going to be worse. But the truth of the matter is, people can all draw a star.
Well, I can draw a stick figure.
And
right?
What do you need?
Don't I just need a stick figure for a person?
You just need a stick figure.
Okay, good. I
because
feel better.
Then you're going to know that you're talking about a person. Or if you draw 4, you know you're talking about a group of people. And if you put a bubble over their head, you know that they're all having a conversation. So the pictures that you draw, especially when you're facilitating, are very, very simple, but they do give those kind of triggers to your brain.
Well, it seems to me the other barrier, I mean, you'll hear a lot about people have different learning styles. Mm-hmm. And there's a part of me that says when people say they like reading versus what is the hierarchy around learning styles? I often hear people say that there's certain learning styles that I am an auditory learner, mm-hmm. right? Which means that if you give it to me in writing, I'm not going to really respond to that. It seems to me there's very little reason in my mind that if you put up something visual, that isn't the best way for people to learn. But there is a story out there about we all learn differently.
Yeah. And, it's the running joke in my house when I skip a meeting or the children don't take something to school. I say, well, the email didn't have a picture in it. So
that's good. I got to use that.
Yeah, it's not going to, it's not going to go into my brain if there isn't a picture. But are there some people you found that don't resonate with this? Very few.
Yeah.
Very few. But yeah, there are. And, the thing is that you when you're taking your own notes, you have to find your style. And for the most part, we've all been taught to write something in lists, which is fine, but there are no cues there for us to look for.
But see, I think this is the problem. I think people think they need to capture all the words in between versus looking for the key concept.
Yes.
And that's ultimately, when you're a graphic facilitator, you're looking for the key concept that strings the ideas together.
Yes.
And I think that's a trained skill.
Yes.
I don't think people naturally know how to do that. They're used to keeping track of lists, like you just said.
And I practice. My boot camp is TED. So,
right.
Because the TED Talks are, they've been working on those for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they have taken all of that fluff out. There's very little kind of time in between ideas and points there. But everybody trains. If you want to flex a muscle, you're going to go to the gym and train it. So
that's great. That's a great point.
The listening skills and the drawing skills, most people doodle. And the thought behind that is that you're not listening. Well, the studies that are coming out over the years has shown that people who are doodling are actually more engaged than somebody who is just sitting there staring.
I feel so much better now about myself.
You're right. So
I'm
just
always
turn
doodling.
your doodles into little squares around your lists and arrows from those lists to other lists. And
so for people listening, what kind of initiative or meeting should they be thinking about, or some examples where they'd want to pull people together? For example, if they're doing a strategic planning project or they're bringing a committee together, are there some kinds of gatherings that better lend themselves for graphic facilitation if people are thinking about doing it for the first time?
I think that if you're going to be using graphic facilitation with a graphic facilitator, then you're looking at something larger like a strategic planning or day retreats. Those weekly or monthly meetings that you have, get somebody trained up into graphic facilitation for teams and start that visual process going. The other piece of graphic facilitation is we're working on a different scale. You've seen the pictures. They're 6 foot, 8 foot by 4 foot. So you're working at a very different scale from this tiny, letter size list that you're working on or a flip chart. So it gets your whole body engaged. It gets everybody's engaged in this picture that's larger than life, really.
It's a creative way a very creative way of engaging a large group.
Yes.
The way, as non-transformational this is, this in itself is a big deal, is to get in a large group 5 flip charts and people working on those 5 flip charts. Yeah. That in itself is a big deal. Yeah. Even though what they're doing there is they're writing lists. They're not drawing pictures.
Just as long as they put colored bullet points and,
Exactly. Because I think that engages people more. They get to, it's almost play.
Yes, and there's no reason why we can't play. I mean, the ideas come out when we're playing. That's innovation.
Yeah.
But, I have had people on panels and recording the panel discussion and have had the participants come up to me and say, I was trying to think of things to say so I could get on the picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, people like to see themselves.
True.
They like to see themselves in different places and their words there. So many people come up after I've recorded and just take pictures of themselves, either with the picture or take pictures of the picture just so that they can have it on their phone. And now we've got this technology where we can literally have them around us all the time. And by just remembering that conversation allows us to actually start to put it into action.
Very cool. So how can people learn more about what you're doing?
We have a site for graphic facilitators.
What's the site?
I always get the acronym wrong. The International Federation for Visual Practitioners.
But you have a website too.
I have a website
What's
too.
your website?
My website is ideastakeshape.com.
Ideastakeshape.com. I love that. How'd you get that one? You got lucky there.
Super lucky.
Super lucky.
Because that's really what happens. Ideas are taking shape all the time. I'm just capturing them.
I love that name. Yeah, so, and we're also going to put up on the site some other places where people can go learn more about your work. Any final thoughts about why you think this is something we need to be doing more of as team, as individuals?
As my son said to me the other day when I said, I'm not getting to the gym. He said, just do it. Just pick up a pen and do it. Put your doodles to action in notes. Take the Sharpie and be the person who stands up in the meeting and, starts to take control of that by just drawing.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Well, that's a tagline. Did you come up with that one too?
No,
Just
I think
do
Nike
it?
did.
Okay. Karyn, thank you. This has been fantastic. And I'm excited about continuing to work with you. So we will continue this another time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.